Chapter 81. Two Country Bumpkins Eating Western Food. Lin Yang flipped through the menu and began to order. First, he asked for a cream of mushroom soup priced at 780 yuan. He wanted to find out what made it so expensive. Then he ordered an A5 Wagyu steak. The waiter brought a tray to the table and sliced and weighed it on the spot. 238 grams at 19.9 yuan per gram, nearly 4,736 yuan. He added a 480 yuan pasta, curious how Western pasta would differ from the versions he knew, and finished with an 850 yuan salad. Chen Qingqing ordered a flat iron steak. Though cheaper than the A5 Wagyu, it still cost over 4,000 yuan. She also ordered a few snacks. Soon after they finished ordering, the dishes began to arrive. The cream mushroom soup came first, creamy and pale, served in an exquisite ceramic bowl and garnished with finely chopped herbs, accompanied by a small slice of golden toast. Next was the pasta, long strands coated in a rich meat sauce, flecked with tender bits of meat and finely chopped vegetables, a bright basil leaf perched on the rim of the plate. The salad that followed was artfully arranged, a riot of color, with red tomatoes, orange carrot shreds, purple cabbage, green lettuce, sprinkled nuts and shredded cheese, and a small dish of special dressing on the side. Seeing the plates, Lin Yang couldn't help but recall the online joke about Western food. Big plates, small portions, nothing but greens and sauce. Now he admitted it fit. Each portion was modest, but the presentation was meticulous, as if the dishes were meant to be admired rather than eaten. A wry smile tugged at his lips. Chen Qingqing was looking at the food with the same interest. Then the steak arrived. A waiter carried an ornate platter with the much-anticipated A5 Wagyu in the center, surrounded by colorful sides and a small dish of sauce. He bowed slightly and delivered a practiced introduction. "Sir, madam, this is our top-grade A5 Wagyu beefsteak," he said. This Wagyu is from the Kobe region of eastern Japan and is purebred black-haired Wagyu. In the final stage of raising, the cattle are fed special grains and ingredients like rice, maltose, and brewery lees, which produces exceptionally tender, juicy meat. In eastern Japan, Wagyu is strictly graded. A5 is the highest rating, indicating extensive marbling and top-quality meat. He lingered on the explanations, bowed again, and stepped back. Lin Yang, eyes bright with expectation, picked up his knife and fork, cut off a piece, and placed it in his mouth. Almost immediately his brow tightened. Chen Qingqing, watching him, asked, "Well, how is it?" "It's too greasy," he said with a faint grimace. "It tastes like eating a large chunk of roasted beef fat." Chen Qingqing smiled and explained patiently, "That's exactly what A5 tastes like. The A5 grade is awarded because of the fat marbling wrapped through the meat. There's a lot of fat. It really can come across almost like beef fat. If you eat it with something else, it helps," she added. "Like the salad, the vegetables are refreshing and cut through the richness. Eat them together and the flavors balance much better." "Really?" Lin Yang looked doubtful but curious. He forked some salad, tasted the sweet and sour dressing with the crisp vegetables, and immediately felt refreshed. The salad did indeed cut the greasiness of the steak. He tried another bite of steak with salad and slowly adjusted to the texture and flavor. The greasiness remained noticeable, but paired with the salad, it became tolerable. He could see now why A5 was prized. It was a taste that took some getting used to, and a luxury not everyone would appreciate. He thought about the price. 238 grams for nearly 5,000 yuan, almost half a year's rent for his old place. He couldn't help but let out an inward sigh. Chen Qingqing watched him with amusement. "You don't like Western food, do you? Why come here at all?" Lin Yang shrugged. "Because there wasn't a queue," he said frankly. He still preferred Chinese food. To his palate, its variety of techniques and flavors outmatched Western cuisine, which seemed more uniform. Trying this once was enough. Chen Qingqing laughed. "You're funny. Aren't you afraid it's unpalatable because there's no line?" Her voice, calm and even, landed like a stone in a still pond, sending ripples across the room. A waiter balancing a tray nearby stopped in mid-step. The smile froze on his face. He turned, eyes suddenly sharp as knives, as if Chen Qingqing had insulted the restaurant itself. Other diners hushed and turned to look. At a corner table, a well-dressed couple was finishing a romantic lunch. The young man, who had been smirking with contempt, frowned at Chen Qingqing's words, and muttered under his breath to the girl. 2 country bumpkins. They've never seen the world. The Secret Realm is Xing City's top Western restaurant. Everything here is exquisite. They just don't know how to appreciate it. The girl nodded, pleased with her own superiority. At another table, several middle-aged men in suits were discussing business. One set down his red wine and sniffed. Young people today have no manners. How dare they speak like that in a place like this? The dishes here emphasize the original flavors and meticulous cooking. They wouldn't understand. A nearby group of girls who had been swapping bites exchanged puzzled looks. One with a ponytail turned to her friend and whispered, "How could they say that? I've been wanting to come here forever. The steak and desserts are supposed to be amazing. They must just not know how to eat it." Under those glances, Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing ate the rest of their meal. When it was time to pay, Lin Yang raised his hand and called the waiter. The waiter approached with professional courtesy and said, "Sir, madam, the total for your meal is 15,629 yuan. Lin Yang didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, opened his payment code, and held it out. The waiter didn't take it to scan. Instead, he bowed slightly, a mysterious smile on his face. "Mr. Lin, I'm truly sorry, but our boss instructed that whenever you dine, the bill is on us." Lin Yang froze. He didn't know any owner of the Secret Realm. He had no reason to believe someone would treat him so. How did the waiter know him? Heads around the room turned, curiosity sharpening. A flash of memory rose up. Chen Qingqing's mysterious smile when they'd entered, and the free class reunion meal at the high-end seafood buffet, Big Fish Begonia, a place where Chen Qingqing had been the boss. The pattern fit. Lin Yang's gaze drifted to her. "Do you own this restaurant too?" he asked quietly. Before Chen Qingqing could answer, the waiter stepped forward and filled the silence. "Yes, Mr. Lin, this is our boss." The words landed like a drumbeat. The entire restaurant fell silent. Those who had been whispering and sneering at the 2 country bumpkins now found their expressions frozen. The well-dressed young man who had been about to continue his taunts felt his smile vanish. His face flushed deep red. He lowered his head and nervously tugged at his collar. His girlfriend's cheeks burned with embarrassment. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it, filled with regret. The men with the red wine glasses looked at each other awkwardly. One of them had his glass suspended midair, as if time had stopped. He cleared his throat twice, searching for words, but his voice came out dry and stiff. The girls who had been critical widened their eyes in disbelief. The ponytailed girl's jaw dropped into an O, and she covered her mouth with her hand, whispering to her friend, "Oh my God, she's the boss. We just said they didn't know how to eat." What a slap in the face. Other diners started murmuring. "So she's the owner of this restaurant," a fashionably dressed woman said in surprise. "I knew it," her companion replied. "Someone who can run a place like this can't be a country bumpkin." To open a high-end restaurant in a prime location like Guojin Center, she can't be ordinary, another voice agreed. A man with glasses pushed them up and nodded thoughtfully. "Compared to them, we're the ones who don't know. This Wagyu does taste like roasted butter. We just didn't want to admit it." The atmosphere in the room shifted from disdain to awkward admiration. Lin Yang, still staring at Chen Qingqing, felt a new sort of appreciation for the woman who could turn an ordinary lunch into such a scene. Chapter 82, It's My Duty to Serve You. After lunch, Lin Yang drove Chen Qingqing home. They chatted the whole way, laughing easily, and Lin teased, "You've spoiled me again this time. You'll be paying for it." Chen Qingqing blinked playfully. "You don't have to be so formal with me. By the way, I'm really looking forward to going back to Fenghuang County tomorrow. I've missed Teacher Wang all these years and never had a chance to visit." "Oh, what time are we leaving?" Lin asked. 8. If we leave early, we'll get back in time for dinner." Fenghuang County was 8 or 9 hours from Xing City by car. Leaving early meant they'd arrive before dark. "Okay, call me when you're ready tomorrow," he said. "Okay." They pulled into the apartment building's underground parking. It was convenient. They lived in the same complex, the same building, even the same floor, and they both smiled at the thought. Lin first took Chen Qingqing to her door, then returned to his own apartment and began loading his car. He moved back and forth, carrying belts, clothes, and the food he'd bought, placing each item into the trunk with care. Sweat dotted his forehead, but he didn't bother wiping it away. These were gifts for his parents. He didn't want to forget a thing. While he was packing, his phone rang. It was Shi Jia. She gave him a full update on the Maybach S580 refund and the demand for triple compensation. The dealership had been stalling, refusing to accept responsibility, but the evidence was complete and incontrovertible. Just as she was about to file suit, the dealership suddenly backpedaled, but only offered a single refund and compensation, not the triple amount she insisted on. "Mr. Lin," Shejia said firmly over the phone, "I'm confident we can make them refund and pay triple. Their fraud deserves to be punished. I want to continue with the lawsuit. I wanted to know what you think." Shijia was Runhe Group's legal director and a highly regarded lawyer. Lin had handed the whole matter over to her, so he wasn't about to interfere. "Do as you see fit, Lawyer Xie," he replied without hesitation. "I support your decision. You don't have to update me constantly. Just tell me the result when it's done." "All right, I understand." Shijia thought Lin Yang was the best client she'd ever had. Unlike many clients who meddle in professionals' work, he put his trust in her. After they hung up, Lin finished preparing for the trip, excited about going home. Early the next morning, as dawn only just began to lighten the sky, Lin Yang was already up. He took the gold bracelet, the white jade and jade bracelets, and the gold rings he'd bought and packed them carefully into the bag. His heart warmed at the thought of seeing his parents again. Before 8, carrying bags full of gifts, he arrived at Chen Qingqing's door and pressed the bell. She opened it a moment later, smiling brightly in light, casual clothes that made her look especially energetic. "Morning, Lin Yang. Ready to go?" she asked in a clear, pleasant voice. "Morning. All set. Just waiting on you," he answered, smiling. They took the elevator down together, and as they stepped out, ran into Zhang Human. Seeing them both loaded down with parcels, his face lit up. He practically jogged over, reaching for the bags as if afraid someone else might take them. "Mr. Lin, let me help you carry those." "Don't be polite," he said warmly, his expression sincere and eager to be useful. Zhang Human walked ahead to the parking lot, glancing back now and then to make sure they were following and warning them. "Mind your step, the floor's just been cleaned and isn't dry yet." His tone was solicitous, as though escorting honored guests. When he saw Chen Qingqing with Lin Yang, curiosity flickered across his face. "Mr. Lin, so many gifts. Are you going to visit your in-laws?" he asked. Chen Qingqing blushed instantly, cheeks reddening like ripe apples. She looked down and bit her lip, clearly a little embarrassed. Lin Yang quickly waved a hand. "No, I'm going back to my hometown. I haven't been home in 2 years. These are for my parents." "Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood," Zhang said quickly. "Uncle and aunt will be so lucky to have a son like you." He genuinely meant it. The bags were stamped Doxia gold and heavy. At today's prices, there must be at least a few kilos, worth several 100,000 yuan. As a building manager at Binjiang Bay, Zhang made a respectable living, but compared to Lin Yang's generosity, it was nothing. He happily led them to Lin's parking space. He knew the complex inside out and quickly stowed everything in the trunk, arranging the parcels with care to prevent any bumps or scratches. Then he took the things from Chen Qingqing's hands and stacked them neatly, muttering, "These must be placed properly. We can't have them getting damaged." Only after checking twice that everything was secure did he finally nod in satisfaction. Lin Yang pulled out a carton of cigarettes, handed Zhang a pack of Heitianxia and said, "Thanks for your help." Zhang accepted it gratefully, both hands on the pack. He bowed slightly. "No trouble at all. It's my duty to serve Mr. Lin," he said, smiling broadly, eyes bright with gratitude. "I wish you a smooth journey." "You too. Take care," Lin replied. He climbed into the car with Chen Qingqing, started the engine, and they drove out of the community, setting off on the long journey back home. Chapter 83, Second Uncle. The trip from Xing City to Fenghuang County wasn't short. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing left early and sped along the highway. To make it home before dinner, they grabbed a quick lunch at a service area and kept driving. Around 3 in the afternoon, they finally left the highway and drove into town. When they passed a small convenience store, Chen Qingqing said she was thirsty. Lin Yang braked smoothly and pulled over right in front of the shop. You wait in the car, he said. I'll go get some water. In front of the store, a few elderly men sat around a table playing xiangqi, watched by a small crowd. The sudden screech of brakes cut through the quiet. Everyone turned as a large SUV parked curbside and immediately drew attention. What kind of car is that? So imposing, one old man said, squinting at the emblem. Looks like a lightning bolt. I've never seen it. No idea, another replied, leaning in to examine it. A young man passing by overheard them and, a little too proudly, supplied the answer. That's a Yangwang U8, real luxury. It's got tank-like performance. It can turn on the spot, so it's great in narrow streets, and there's an emergency float mode, practically amphibious. Flooded roads? No problem. You just drive right through. His gestures and smile made it clear he knew the car well. The old men listened, mouths open. Turn on the spot? That's amazing. Even our narrow county lanes would be easy with that. And drive on water. Never heard of such a thing. If you drove that to the river, you could just cross it instead of taking a boat, another joked, and the group laughed. How much would something like that cost? Someone asked. The young man's pride spread into a grin. Over $1 million. The elders gasped. Over $1 million? That's a lifetime for most people. Who spends that on a car? Must be a very rich family. Look, the license plate is from the provincial capital. Which rich kid would come back to our little county in $1 million car? Old Zhang craned his neck to read the plate. With Qingming coming, lots of people go back to their ancestral homes. Otherwise, who'd come to this poor place just for sightseeing? Their logic seemed to make sense. Fenghuang County had no major tourist draws. Most travelers were locals coming home. As they speculated, Li Laotou, who'd been focused on the chessboard, was pulled by the commotion. He glanced up and froze, his eyes fixed on the young man who had stepped out of the SUV. He blinked hard, as if checking he wasn't imagining things. Isn't this Xiao Yang? He murmured. The xiangqi piece in his hand slipped and clattered to the ground, but he didn't seem to notice. The other men noticed his reaction. Li Laotou, do you know him? Someone asked. Li Laotou came back to himself and nodded eagerly. Of course I do. He's my grandnephew. There were skeptical looks. Li Laotou, we know your family. We've never heard of anyone getting that rich. You joking with us? Before the doubts could grow, Lin Yang spotted his great-uncle and called out loudly, Great-uncle! That voice cleared everything away. Li Laotou's face broke into a wide grin as he hurried over. Xiao Yang, you're back. Yes, I came home for a bit, Lin Yang said warmly. You playing chess, great-uncle? Yeah, they were saying your car costs over $1 million. Must be you've done really well. Lin Yang laughed modestly as Li Laotou looked him up and down. Not at all. Made a little money, that's all. Wait a second. Lin Yang suddenly remembered something, ran back to the car, and dug in the trunk. He brought out a carton of cigarettes and a loose pack. He handed the carton to his great-uncle with a smile. Great-uncle, I couldn't come back for your 80th birthday last time. Please accept this as an apology. Then he opened the other pack and offered the cigarettes around. These are He Tian Xia, 200 a pack. The old men took them as if they were treasure. One held a stick to his nose and sniffed like a connoisseur. Your grandnephew's done well, he said, eyes wide. He's been sharp since he was small. Knew he'd make something of himself, another added, envious. Li Laotou puffed up with pride, patting Lin Yang's shoulder. I knew it. This child would succeed. The old men picked up cigarettes, praising him and imagining future favors. Driving a luxury car and smoking good cigarettes, he must be doing very well. Lin Yang accepted each compliment with a humble smile. You flatter me? Just a bit of luck. After buying water, he said goodbye to his great-uncle and drove off. The elderly men stayed, still buzzing from the encounter. Their eyes followed the SUV until it was out of sight, and they kept talking, half in admiration, half in envy. Li Laotou, you've hit the jackpot. Your grandnephew's done well. 1 pack of those could pay for days of our living. You'll be going places now, maybe to the provincial capital. Imagine him treating you well when you go. They joked and dreamed aloud, comparing Lin Yang to their own struggling children. Li Laotou stood in the middle of the group, smiling broadly, soaking up the attention and imagining a brighter future riding in his grandnephew's car. Li Laotou took the carton of Harmony of Heaven, worth 2,000 yuan. His mind long since abandoned the chessboard. He hurried home, clutching the cigarettes like a prized possession. The moment he walked in, his son, Xiao Li, spotted the carton and blinked in surprise. "Dad, is that Harmony of Heaven? Where did you get it?" Xiao Li asked. Everyone knew how frugal his father was. He wouldn't normally buy even a 10 yuan pack, let alone a whole carton of expensive smokes. "Xiao Yang gave it to me," Li Laotou said, puffing up with pride. "He didn't come back for my birthday, so this is his belated present. Don't even think about selling it or giving it away." He set the carton carefully on the cupboard, as if placing a treasure on a pedestal. "Xiao Yang? Kaixia's boy?" Xiao Li still looked doubtful. "Is that true? Kaixia's son? He only graduated a couple years ago. He might have bought a 100,000 yuan car with a loan, but a million yuan luxury car? That's hard to believe." Lin Yang's family had always seemed ordinary. The idea that he would suddenly be driving a million yuan luxury car didn't sit right. Li Laotou grew a little anxious at his son's skepticism. He stomped his foot for emphasis. "I'm telling you, it wasn't just me. Everyone I play chess with saw it." Xiao Li watched his father's face, serious, earnest. After a beat, he decided to trust him. Then maybe Xiao Yang found his break out there and made his fortune. Kaixia and her husband can finally relax. Relieved, Xiao Li pulled out his phone, opened the loving family group, and typed away. "Kaixia's son, Lin Yang, is back. He drove a million yuan luxury car and handed out Harmony of Heaven to everyone. He even gave my old man a whole carton. Looks like he struck it rich." As soon as the message went through, the chat erupted. "Is this for real? Why didn't Kaixia say anything?" Someone immediately mentioned Yang Kaixia, but there was no reply. "She's probably cooking and hasn't seen her phone. I'll go check." "I'm free? Me too." Messages piled up, buzzing with disbelief and barely concealed envy. The news spread fast. At her house, Yang Kaixia was at the stove, tending a pot of braised pork that filled the kitchen with a rich, mouth-watering smell. She kept an eye on the pressure cooker and chopped vegetables with practiced ease, preparing a good meal for her son's return. Then a sharp voice cut through the yard. "Kaixia! Kaixia!" She froze, cleaver midair, and wiped her hands on her apron. Stepping out into the courtyard, she saw her cousin standing there, grinning so widely her eyes were nearly closed. The cousin rushed forward and grabbed Yang Keixia's hand, fingers warm and gripping as if afraid she'd slip away. "Kaixia!" the cousin trilled, her voice high and eager. "I heard Xiao Yang's back. Where is he? Let me see him. He's made something of himself and didn't tell us. We've missed him so much." She kept peeking into the house, as if she could spot Lin Yang through the walls. Before Yang Kaixia could answer, another voice approached. A male cousin jogged into the yard on an electric bike, shouting before he even dismounted. "Kaixia, let me see Xiao Yang. I knew he'd do well." He left the bike parked haphazardly and came up to her, slapping her shoulder. "He came back in a luxury car. This is a good day for our family. Now we'll all benefit." He flashed a grin that revealed yellowed, smoke-stained teeth. His flattery hung in the air. One by one, aunts and uncles materialized from every direction until the small courtyard throbbed with people. Voices overlapped. "What does Xiao Yang do out there to make so much money? If he's driving a fancy car, it must be something big. Tell us." "That child was always clever. See, I knew he'd make it." They beamed and pressed in, eagerness and envy written plainly on their faces. They clustered around Yang Keixia like a swarm of bees, buzzing so loudly she couldn't get a word in. The sudden attention made her head swim. These relatives hardly ever dropped by, so why all this interest in Xiao Yang today? She stood surrounded, bewildered, unable to make herself heard above the clamor. Chapter 85. That's My Home. It took Kaixia a long time to make sense of what was happening. It turned out a number of relatives from her second uncle that her son, Lin Yang, had driven a luxury car worth 1,000,000 yuan back to the village, and that he'd been handing out 200 yuan packs of Heitianxia cigarettes to everyone he met. Relatives they usually stayed in touch with came by, of course, but even some family they hadn't seen or spoken to in years suddenly showed up. She shook her head. Having money really did mean you had relatives everywhere. When you're poor, people look down on you, but when you have money, everyone rushes to be friendly. Since so many people had come, she couldn't simply turn them away. She set aside her kitchen work, brought out cups, and poured tea for the visitors. Still, she was puzzled about the story of the luxury car. She knew her son well. He wouldn't do anything illegal, and he certainly wouldn't rent an expensive car just to show off. How did he come to be driving a million-yuan car? Had her second uncle been mistaken? While she was making tea, she went back into her room and called Lin Yang. "Xiaoyang, why are people saying you drove a luxury car back?" she asked. "Mom, I'm almost home. I'll tell you when I get there," he said. All right. Outside, the neighbors noticed Kaixia's house unusually lively and went over to see what was happening. "Is there something going on today? Why are so many people here?" one neighbor asked. "Xiaoyang is back," a relative answered. "We haven't seen him in a few years, so everyone came to visit." The neighbor was a little bemused. Was a junior coming home worth all this fuss? Just then a black sedan appeared. Someone with sharp eyes pointed it out. "Look, isn't that Xiaoyang's car? Fenghuang County isn't far. By the time, it should be him soon. Let's go. Let's meet him at the intersection." They hurried to the road. Zhang Daqiang had just returned from Feng County himself. As he neared his house, he found a crowd blocking the intersection, as if waiting to greet someone. He slammed on the brakes, rolled down the window, and stuck his head out. "What's going on? Why is everyone standing in the road?" he called. "Oh, it's Daqiang. I was thinking that car over there didn't look like it's worth $1 million, someone replied. "I told you, that's just an Asian dragon, only about 100,000. "Hey Daqiang, you can't block the road. Move, don't block Xiaoyang's way. How will he get home otherwise?" Zhang Daqiang frowned. Move, how am I supposed to drive if you're standing there?" Reluctantly, the crowd stepped aside. Zhang Daqiang drove off, and almost immediately a large SUV rolled up. "That car looks high-end. This must be Xiaoyang's," someone said. "It's too far to see the emblem," another replied. "But a car like that can't be cheap." All eyes turned toward the vehicle, everyone whispering and guessing whether Lin Yang had returned. Lin Yang had bought water and given it to Chen Qingqing. "I ran into some relatives and got delayed. It's almost dinner. Why don't we eat at my place, and I'll take you back to Fenghuang County to stay tonight?" "All right." He drove straight to Phoenix Village. In less than half an hour, they arrived. Immediately, Lin Yang spotted his family home. In the whole village, it was the only unrenovated red brick house, standing out amid tiny villas with tiled facades and decorative touches. The exposed bricks looked dull under the sun, forming a sharp contrast with the surrounding houses, many of which were designed like small estates. Chen Qingqing, who had lived in Fenghuang County as a child and was visiting Phoenix Village for the first time, took it all in with curiosity. The village wasn't the backward mountain hamlet she'd imagined. Almost every household appeared well kept, many with cars parked in front. "Lin Yang, your village is really pretty. Which one is your house?" she asked. "Just ahead, the one with the red brick walls." Chen Qingqing was momentarily stunned. She hadn't expected his family home to be the plainest in the whole village. For a beat, she didn't know what to say. Lin Yang wasn't embarrassed or defensive. His family had been poor. Both his parents were in fragile health. His father had a chronic illness that required long-term medication. It had been hard enough for them to cover daily expenses and pay for his schooling. Even at the most difficult times, his parents never let him lack food or clothing. For them to have saved enough to build a house was an achievement. Now that he had the means, he intended to give them whatever they wanted. If they wanted to live in the city, he'd buy them a home there. If they preferred the village, he'd build them a large villa. "Hey, Lin Yang, your house looks busy. Did they all know you were coming and come to welcome you?" someone called. Lin Yang smiled wryly. "No, when a junior comes back to his hometown, etiquette says it's the junior who visits the elders." He hadn't finished speaking before he saw the whole courtyard packed with people, spilling out onto the road. By the time he drove to the gate, the crowd had pressed around the car. He had no choice but to stop and roll down the window. As soon as they saw him, faces lit up. "Xiaoyang, you're back. You're just as handsome as ever. Is the lady next to you your girlfriend? You're amazing. Not only did you get into a key university, but you made a success of yourself afterward, and you've brought such a beautiful girlfriend." Voices tumbled over one another, full of flattering smiles and eager curiosity, as if Lin Yang's return was their pride and reflected on them. He looked around, bewildered. Some faces belonged to relatives and neighbors he recognized, but many were unfamiliar, people he didn't remember and didn't know. Chapter 86. Zhang Daqiang's Change of Mind. This car looks impressive, but I can't make out the badge. Someone circled the vehicle, puzzled. A young man who had been watching chimed in excitedly. That's the Yangwang U8. It's a new brand. When it first came out, I saw it on Douyin every day. The on-the-spot pivot and the emergency floating mode are so sci-fi. If I had the money, I'd buy one in a heartbeat. So it's called Yangwang, a new brand that sells for over 1 million? It must be imported, Zhang Daqiang muttered as he parked and joined the growing crowd. Hearing the price, he immediately assumed it had to be foreign. No, it's a high-end brand under 3YC, fully domestic, the young man corrected, a little impatient. Zhang Duck snorted. Domestic? They actually dare to charge over 1 million for a domestic car? The young man bristled. Uncle Daqiang, times have changed. Domestic cars are just as good as imports now. You say they're not worse, so they're not worse? Zhang Daqiang scoffed. I want to see why a domestic car would cost that much. He walked up to Lin Yang, unconvinced. Xiao Yang, can I take a look inside your car? Sure, but let me drive it into the yard first. It's blocking the road, Lin Yang replied with a smile. Zhang Daqiang moved to clear the way. Lin Yang started the car and slowly drove it into the yard, then parked and got out with Chen Qingqing. When Chen Qingqing stepped out, the noise of the crowd faded as if someone had turned the volume down. She wore a simple, elegant dress that complemented her figure. A breeze lifted her hair. Her face was delicate and fair, her eyes bright and expressive. A faint smile curved her lips, soft and warm. Her every movement had a composed grace that drew every eye. The crowd fell into a hush, then a chorus of low exclamations. She's like she walked out of a painting, an aunt whispered, eyes wide with envy. Not only pretty, she carries herself like someone from a different class, an uncle added. Lin Yang is lucky, a young man sighed. Someone yelled, Kaixia, Kaixia! Your son brought a daughter-in-law home. And the remark sent Chen Qing's face bright red. She looked down, embarrassed. Lin Yang hurried forward. She's my junior high classmate. We came back together to visit our old teacher. We're just friends, he explained, gently taking her arm and leading her inside. They bumped into young Kaixia coming out of the kitchen. Her eyes filled when she saw her son. She put down her plates and hugged him, choked with emotion. Son, you've gotten so thin these past 2 years. Mom, Lin Yang said, hugging her back. He noticed how much she'd aged in his absence. The years had left lines on her face. Yang Chaixia glanced at Chen Qingqing holding Lin Yang's hand and teased. Is this your daughter-in-law? She isn't my girlfriend, Lin Yang told her, but his mother whispered with a smile. Even if she isn't now, she will be. I can tell she likes you. Lin Yang only smiled and led Chen Qingqing to his room. You can rest here a while. I'll go greet everyone. Outside, people crowded around the car again. Zhang Daqiang carefully walked around, then seeing Lin Yang asked, Mind if I sit in it? Given permission, he hopped in eagerly. The moment he sat, his eyes widened. This seat, so comfortable, he blurted, equal parts envy and disbelief. The crowd leaned in, curious. Zhang Daqiang's attention moved to the huge curved center screen. It glowed with a futuristic interface. He touched it thinking a screen that size might be sluggish. To his surprise, it responded instantly, every swipe and tap smooth as silk. He compared it in his head to his own car's small, slow, often freezing console and felt stunned by the difference. This center console is just amazing, he said. He explored the roomy interior and abundant storage and could not help but think of his family's cramped trips in his own car. The U8 space felt luxurious in comparison. When he tried to find the door button to get out, he fumbled and asked out loud, How do I open the door? A crisp electronic voice replied, Door opened, and the door slid open automatically. Zhang Daqiang's face went pale. He sat frozen for a moment as if he'd seen a ghost. Lin Yang smiled and explained, It's voice control. It handles doors, windows, climate, seats. There's even an autonomous driving mode. Just give it a command. Zhang Daqiang stared, mouth agape. He muttered, This is straight out of a sci-fi movie. I had no idea domestic cars had come this far. Around him, younger people's eyes lit up with excitement, while older folks looked puzzled but impressed. Conceding to the evidence in front of him, Zhang Daqiang admitted aloud, "I've been too stubborn. I always thought domestic cars were inferior. After this, I can't look at them the same way." Lin Yang nodded. Domestic brands have made huge leaps in technology, design, and quality. A lot of them are even exported and well received abroad. Yep, Zhang Daqiang sighed, shaking his head in amazement. If you hadn't told me this was domestic, I wouldn't have guessed. The tech and the build quality are flawless. No wonder they can charge over $1 million. The crowd murmured in agreement, some already debating future car purchases. "We should consider domestic cars more when we buy next time," one suggested. "Definitely. So much tech for the money," another agreed. Someone else piped up with a laugh. "All well and good, but this one costs $1 million. Who can afford that?" And the onlookers erupted in a mixture of admiration and envy. Chapter 87. I Really Got Rich. Just after exchanging pleasantries, Lin Yang hadn't even sat down to drink any water when his uncle came over, curiosity and concern etched on his face. "Xiaoyang, what do you do in the city to afford a car like that after only 2 years of work?" Lin Yang felt a slight tightening in his chest but kept a calm smile. "Nothing much. I just got lucky speculating on stocks." "Lucky, huh? I heard 9 out of 10 people lose money in the market," his second aunt said, eyes bright with admiration. "Xiaoyang, if you're that good, can you show us? I have some savings." At that, his uncle's eyes lit up, and he leaned forward eagerly. Lin Yang frowned inwardly. He forced a serious look and said, "Uncle, stocks are risky. I got lucky once, but luck can run out. It's safer to leave your money in the bank and earn steady interest." He silently hoped the hint would be enough. Friends' and relatives' money was a nightmare. If it made money, they'd claim they could have made more or accuse him of skimming. If it lost money, they'd blame him. He could make steady profits with his system, but he wouldn't risk other people's savings. Blinded by the thought of gains, his uncle hesitated at first, then gave up on the idea. "You're right. I can't handle the ups and downs. Better to be safe." Relief washed over Lin Yang as he nodded. Then his sharp-eyed third aunt noticed the packed back seat. "Xiaoyang, your car's full. Are those gifts for your parents?" "Yes, some presents," Lin Yang said mildly, smiling. "You've brought so much. You can't carry all that by yourself. Let us help." She shoved the door open and began hauling items inside. She pulled out a huge root of ginseng and held it up, eyes wide. "My goodness, this ginseng is enormous, 4 or 5 times the size of the one in my wine jar. It must be worth a fortune." That set everyone moving. "Look, cherry-sized, golden ones. I saw those on Douyin, 699 yuan per jin. This box must be at least 10 jin." A young cousin cried, picking a piece up to examine it reverently before putting it back like it were a rare gem. "There are imported red-fleshed kiwis too," Lin Yang's second uncle said, shaking his head in amazement. "Not cheap." "Musang King durian," someone else exclaimed, and the crowd's curiosity grew. They hustled the items from the back seat into the house. Then third aunt noticed the trunk and offered to help with that as well. Lin Yang had planned to move the trunk items in later when fewer people were around, but refusing would look suspicious. He figured since everything was boxed, no one would pry, so he opened the trunk. A collective gasp rose the instant the lid went up. "Wow, boxes of Mao Tai." His third uncle's eyes bulged. He leaned forward, mouth watering. "Mao Tai, I've only had it at the richest man's banquet in the village. That taste sticks with you." His fourth uncle joined in, reminiscing about the flavor as if it were happening again. Someone began counting the boxes aloud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 boxes of Mao Tai. How much is that worth? The surprise rippled through everyone. Third aunt hefted a small but heavy bag next and read the label Great Xia Gold on the little boxes inside. She weighed it in her hands, clicking her tongue appreciatively. "My goodness, several jin of gold in one bag. Yang Chaixia is so lucky to have such a good son. Not only makes money, but spends it on his parents." She didn't make a scene. Instead, she carried the bag inside and specifically told Yang Kaixia to keep it safe. Then she came back out to keep loading. Lin Yang lifted another package. "Oh, those are gifts for my dad. Some belts," he said casually. Third aunt's hand flew to her mouth. "What? You gave your mother several jin of gold, but only a few belts to your father?" she blurted, then realized the faux pas and covered her mouth in mortification. Word spread immediately. Did she say several jin of gold? An ant gasped, eyes wide. Gold's going for 800 or 900 yuan a gram now. Several jin is hundreds of thousands. Someone did the math aloud and sucked in a sharp breath. I thought he was just showing off with a rented luxury car, but he's really struck it rich. Heads nodded around the yard, expressions a mix of envy and admiration as they looked at Lin Yang. Those belts, I think I recognize the brand. Our village's richest man wears them. They go for thousands, maybe tens of thousands apiece. 10,000 for a belt? I don't even spend that much on food in a year, another relative exclaimed, shaking his head in disbelief. The chatter swelled, alternating between praise and speculation, leaving Lin Yang standing in the middle of it all, as relatives fussed over the parcels and his sudden, very public display of wealth. Chapter 88. The second is your home. Hey, Third Aunt, wait! Someone suddenly called out to Third Aunt. She turned back, puzzled. What is it? I think I've seen the logo on that belt box before, the caller said, frowning as they tried to place it. Armani? Isn't this Armani? Another voice cut in. A casual t-shirt from them goes for over 1,000 yuan. This belt must be worth at least a few thousand, maybe tens of thousands. A ripple of disbelief ran through the crowd, the air going cold with astonishment. What? A belt that expensive? That's almost as much as gold. Third Aunt's eyes went wide and her mouth fell open. The bag holding the belt nearly dropped from her hands. Everyone closed in, curiosity morphing into outright shock. Goodness, a belt costing tens of thousands. What on earth do you do to afford that? An uncle shook his head, half in envy, half in resignation. He instinctively tugged at the cheap belt around his own waist, worth only a few dozen yuan as far as anyone could tell. Rich people's money isn't the same as ours. We work so hard and still can't buy a belt like that in months. An aunt pursed her lips, a little bitter but also amazed at the extravagance, her fingers nervously worrying at the hem of her clothes. Only Yang Taixia stayed level-headed. She had just come out after putting away the gold and had been watching the scene unfold. Hurrying forward, she reproved lightly. Xiao Yang, you child, let Mom talk to you. Gold keeps its value and even earns a little. Why blow so much on a belt? What's the difference between wearing that and one that costs a few dozen yuan? It's not easy for you to earn money. Spend wisely and save what you should. Lin Yang had meant to tell his parents a lower price, but with someone recognizing the brand, there was no point hiding it. Since they'd seen it, he might as well be honest. Now that he had money, his spending would naturally be different, and his family would need time to adjust. Money was meant to be used. If all you did was hoard it, it was just numbers on a page. He smiled and said, Mom, it's all within my means. If I hadn't been worried about fitting everything in the car, I would have bought more. Things are different now. Don't always worry about me saving every penny. Yang Kaixia watched her son with complicated feelings. Her brows knitted in a mild scold, but there was warmth at the edge of her voice as she stepped forward and patted his arm. Why won't you listen? We're ordinary people, used to living frugally. Spending like that on a belt, it's wasteful. She shook her head softly, an expression of both helplessness and affection. Despite her scolding, the corners of her mouth lifted, her eyes shone with a quiet pride. The villagers' envious looks only made that glow stronger. Memories of Lin Yang as a child, when money was tight and he would refuse new clothes to save for the family, flooded her. Now he could not only earn money, but wanted to show filial piety. The thought warmed her through. I know you're filial, but you shouldn't spend this way. Her nag came softer this time, full of maternal concern. She reached up and straightened his slightly rumpled collar with gentle fingers, the gesture small but tender, a mother's way of saying everything she felt. In the countryside, a child's success and filial devotion were the favorite topics of talk, and Lin Yang's return spread like wildfire. The villagers clustered, voices full of praise. Zhang Dacheng stood to the side, grinning, looking at Lin Yang with admiration. Kaixia, your Lin Yang really made it. So capable at such a young age, you two will have a good life from now on. His voice carried both pride and a touch of envy. The aunt beside him nodded eagerly. Dacheng, your Huming isn't bad either. He has a good job, a high income, and he's so filial, he even bought you a car for your birthday. Who wouldn't be jealous? Yes, Huming is very filial. He saved up a long time to buy that car for me, the ant continued, eyes shining. At the mention of his son, Zhang Daqiang beamed, the lines at the corners of his eyes folding with satisfaction. When someone asked, curious, Daqiang, the Qingming holiday is coming. Will Huming be home? He answered quickly. He'll be back on the second day of Qingming. He just got a promotion and his salary went up quite a bit. He even bought a new Mercedes, 300,000 yuan. He gestured with obvious pride, and the crowd murmured in admiration. Tsk, your Huming is amazing. Among the younger generation here, Lin Yang is probably the most successful, and your Huming is a close second. Eyes turned to Zhang Daqiang, full of envy and approval for Huming. In a small village, children's achievements and filial piety were the greatest mark of honor for parents. Zhang Daqiang laughed loudly, but inside he felt a small pitch of discomfort. Before, everyone had agreed his son was the best among the younger generation. Now that Lin Yang had come home, Huming had slipped from first place to second. Chapter 89. That community is called Binjiang Bay. Daqiang, I heard your son is a butler at one of those top luxury residences in Qing City? An uncle in the crowd asked with interest, eyes shining at the idea of such a glamorous job. Zhang Daqiang puffed out his chest, pride written all over his face. That's right. It's at Binjiang Bay. It's the most expensive development in Qing City, 50,000 yuan a square meter, and the smallest units are 400 square meters. The price of the house itself is one thing, but the monthly property fee is at least 20,000. If you don't have money, you can't even afford the fees. Anyone who lives there has to be incredibly rich. Hiss. A chorus of gasps spread through the group. 20,000 a month for property fees? I only make 3,000 a month. Can't even earn that in half a year. An ant shook her head, half envious, half resigned. So luxurious. No wonder Huming makes so much as a butler there. Heh, another uncle chimed in, eyes bright with envy. Zhang Daqiang beamed as if he were announcing a family triumph. Of course, you don't know how strict they are when hiring butlers there. They screen people like they do flight attendants and airline stewards. No one would do it for low pay. Daqiang, my son isn't bad looking either. When Huming comes back, could you introduce them? If he can't be a butler, he'd be happy to work as a cleaner in that community. An ant said eagerly, flattering smiles on her face. I can't promise that. I'll ask my son when he gets back, Zhang Daqiang replied, his tone still full of pride, as if the favor were already done. All right, thanks, Daqiang. I'll remember this. Aunt Liu, everyone knows what your son is like. He's flirtatious as anything, probably hoping to find a wife in Binjiang Bay, aren't you? Who, me? Aunt Liu laughed, not denying it. In her heart, she knew that if her son could snag one of those wealthy owners, their lives would change overnight. The online stories about a community security guard and 5 women owners weren't too far from her daydreams. While the neighbors chattered about Huming, Lin Yang quietly slipped upstairs. He found Chen Qingqing standing in his room, smiling at the photos on the wall, old pictures of him as a child. He'd had poor nutrition back then. His hair had been yellow and long, almost shoulder length, and he'd looked a little like a girl. Cheng Qing glanced over when she heard him come in and pointed at the photo with a laugh. Is this you when you were little? You were adorable. Lin Yang's face flushed. He scratched his head, embarrassed and awkward, and tried to laugh it off. I was naive and let my hair grow out. Must have looked like a little girl. He quickly changed the subject. Sorry about all the unexpected guests. If I'd known so many people were coming, I wouldn't have asked you over for dinner. It's fine, Chen Qingqing said with a warm smile that felt like spring. They were fun. Everyone was so friendly, made me feel a real sense of community. They lingered in the room until the crowd downstairs began to thin. Lin Yang's mother was tidying up. It was a little messy after hosting so many people. Then Chen Qingqing produced a small red box from her pocket, walked over to Yang Keixia with a gentle smile and offered it. Auntie, I'm sorry for the trouble today. This is a small gift for you. You being here was enough, Yang Keixia protested, but curiosity won out. She opened the box and found a jade bracelet resting inside. It felt warm to the touch, the surface smooth and almost alive. The color was a pure, deep emerald, fresh as spring leaves. clear like a pool. The green was even and unblemished, and in the light it gave off a soft, restrained glow, the kind that makes you look twice. Don't. This is too much. I can't accept something so valuable, Yang Chaixia said, startled. She tried to hand the box back. It's nothing, Auntie. Please accept it, Chen Qingqing insisted, sincere and eager. Mom, please take it. Lin Yang could tell Chen Qingqing would feel uncomfortable if his mother refused. He stepped forward and gently urged his mother. All right, thank you, Qingqing. Yang Kaixia finally accepted. She slipped the bracelet on, and something about her changed. Her plain features softened, and a quiet elegance settled over her as if the jade smoothed out the years. Chen Qingqing clapped, delighted. It suits you so well. Yang Chaixia smiled, touched, then removed the bracelet and returned it to the box. Lin Yang watched, puzzled. Mom, why'd you take it off? I still have to finish cooking, she said, already tying on her apron and hurrying toward the kitchen. It was delayed. The meal's only half done. Where's Dad? Lin Yang asked, glancing toward the door. He heard you were coming and went to buy steamed buns. Yang Kaixia answered with a tolerant shake of her head, as if his little detours were an everyday thing. From the 2577 stall. Lin Yang's ears perked up. The small steamed bun shop number 25-7 at the entrance to his old middle school in the county town had a taste he'd always loved. He hadn't expected his father to go out of his way like that, but he felt a sudden surge of gratitude. It was getting late. I'll go pick him up, Lin Yang said, grabbing his jacket. Chapter 90. Buy a car for Dad. The thought of his son coming home that day made Lin Weiguo's steps light. After lunch, he hurried out, planning to take the bus into the county town to buy his son's favorite steamed buns. The bun shop was small but full of warm, yeasty aroma. He stood at the door, watching the owner deftly fold each bun into a steaming basket, and the rising steam seemed to carry his longing for his boy. 2 baskets of your freshest buns, Lin Weiguo told the owner with a smile. My son likes yours best. Bags in hand, he went straight to the bus stop. He found a seat and set the steaming bundle beside him, occasionally glancing at it to make sure it wouldn't be crushed. But as minutes ticked by, his brow tightened. Several K121 buses usually passed by this time, yet 2 hours had gone, and not a single one appeared. He got up and, nervous, asked the people around him what was happening. K121 isn't running, one man said. Drivers haven't been paid for 2 months. Today was payday, and they didn't get paid again, so they've gone on strike. Lin Weiguo cursed under his breath. He should have asked sooner. The county town was over 20 kilometers from the village. Walking was out of the question. He looked down at the buns. He could already picture his son's disappointed face if he returned empty-handed. Teeth clenched, he decided to take a taxi. He stood by the roadside and watched cars speed past until at last an empty taxi slowed. He waved frantically. The driver rolled down the window and asked, "Where to?" "Phoenix Village," Lin Weiguo replied. The driver's expression hardened. "Phoenix Village? That's way out. No return fares. I won't run the meter." Lin Weiguo's hopes sank, but he tried again. "Then how much?" The driver held up 2 fingers. 200. Lin Weiguo was stunned. "It's usually 50 on the meter. An extra 10 or 20 is fair, but 200 is ridiculous." The driver shrugged. "Flat 200. Take it or leave it." Lin Weiguo felt a hot sting of shame and anger. He thought of bargaining, of how other villagers said taxis charged more for remote trips, and of his own limited means. For his son's sake, he forced himself to ask, "Can you do it cheaper?" The driver tapped the steering wheel. "No. If you can't afford it, don't waste my time." Red-faced and trembling, Lin Weiguo snapped, "Then I won't take it." "Good," the driver sneered. "Don't flag cabs if you can't pay," and he sped off in a cloud of dust. Left on the roadside, steamed buns cooling in his hands, Lin Weiguo felt a wave of humiliation and helplessness. He blamed his failing health, his limited work, the fact they could never afford comforts others had. If they'd had a car, he thought, he wouldn't have been treated like that. He hugged the bun bag and felt the steam thin into the autumn air. For his son, he could endure anything, but today's insult burned. Just then his phone rang. It was Lin Yang. "Dad, where are you?" his son asked. "By the bus stop in front of County Number 1 Middle School. The drivers are on strike, and taxis won't go to Phoenix Village. Stay there. I'll come get you." Lin Weiguo blinked. His son had once joked about driving them back. He had not expected it to be true. Warmth flooded him, his eyes pricked. Okay, don't rush. Drive safely. He stood by the road, clutching his phone, watching every approaching car. Time crawled until finally a sleek SUV appeared in the distance, its lines muscular and the paint gleaming. Lin Weiguo's breath caught. When it drew up, the window rolled down and his son's familiar smile looked out. "Dad, get in," Lin Yang called. Lin Weiguo stared for a moment, overcome. "Is this your car?" he stammered. Lin Yang nodded. "Yes, come on." Inside, the cabin was spacious and clean, the leather seats smelling faintly of new polish. Lin Weiguo touched the cushion and looked at the dashboard as if it were a wonder. "You've done well," he said, voice shaking. "You bought such a nice car." Lin Yang smiled. "I made some money in the stock market. I thought it was time. Now we'll have a car and it'll be easier to get around." Tears pricked Lin Weiguo's eyes. He took his son's hand and squeezed it hard. "We won't have to put up with that kind of treatment anymore. If we'd had this car today—" Lin Yang waved him off. "Don't worry about that, driver. When you have time, get your license. I'll buy you a car too." "No," Lin Weiguo protested quickly. "That would cost so much. I can't let you spend." "It's money," Lin Yang said firmly. "You worked for me all these years. Let me take care of you. As long as you're happy, it's worth it." Lin Weiguo looked at his son's steady face and nodded, unable to speak. The SUV eased back into traffic, and the scenery slid by. He stole glances at Lin Yang, swelling with pride and gratitude. "Such a comfortable ride," he said with a smile. "I never imagined we'd have a car like this." "Soon you can drive it yourself," Lin Yang answered. "No more humiliating serves." They laughed together, the sound bright in the car, until Lin Yang suddenly braked. Ahead, horns were blaring and cars had piled up. Smoke drifted in the distance. "What happened?" Lin Weiguo asked, peering through the windshield. Lin Yang rolled his window down and leaned forward. Not far ahead, a taxi had slammed into a fire hydrant. Its front was crumpled, glass lay scattered around it, and steam rose where the radiator had failed. Emergency crews were still a short way off. "It looks bad," Lin Yang said, easing the SUV to a stop. They waited while traffic crept forward, then drove past the wreck. Lin Weiguo's hand flew to the window. "Son, look! That's the driver who refused me this afternoon." Lin Yang followed his father's nod and saw the same man, blood and dust on his face, standing by the roadside and making a frantic call. Chapter 91, Old Father's Desire to Share. Lin Yang drove slowly around the accident scene and then headed for home. Half an hour later, they rolled into the village. In the passenger seat, Lin Weiguo's heart was like an excitable little deer. He couldn't sit still. He kept glancing out the window, as if waiting for the curtain to rise on some grand moment. When he spotted a familiar figure with a hoe walking briskly along the road ahead, his face lit up. "Hey, stop for a second, son," he cried, all but bursting. Lin Yang glanced over, puzzled, and eased on the brakes. "What's up, Dad?" Without answering, Lin Weiguo wound down the window and practically leaned out, half his body outside, a grin splitting his face. He called out loudly and proudly, "Aunt Li, just finished working?" Aunt Li paused, turned, and after a beat of surprise said, "Oh, Weiguo, is that you?" Lin Weiguo beamed and said, "Yes, I went to the county to buy steamed buns, and Xiao Yang insisted on picking me up." He produced the paper bag as if it were a treasure, and with great ceremony handed it over. "Want one? They're delicious." Aunt Li glanced at her muddy hands, waved them off, and politely declined. "No, no, my hands are dirty." Her eyes then fell on Lin Yang in the car, and her surprise deepened. "Xiao Yang bought a car," she exclaimed. Lin Yang smiled politely. "Hello, Aunt Li. Yes, I just bought it." Only then did Lin Yang understand why his father had insisted on stopping. Lin Weiguo was overflowing with happiness. He wanted everyone in the village to know his son was successful and had a car. When Aunt Li praised him, he laughed and gestured wildly, proud as a peacock. "It's a great car, fast, steady, and so comfortable. If Xiao Yang hadn't driven me home, I would have been stuck in the county. The buses are on strike, and the taxis overcharge. Without our own car, who knows when I'd get back," he went on, practically beaming. After they said goodbye to Aunt Li, the car rolled on. From a distance, their house came into view. Under the big tree at the village entrance, several children chased each other, their laughter ringing through the evening. One sharp-eyed boy pointed at the approaching vehicle and shouted, Hey, look! There's a tank! The others stopped and turned, staring at the off-road vehicle with wide, awed eyes. A little girl with a ponytail gaped, "Wow, it's huge, like the tanks on TV." Hearing the children's chatter, Lin Weiguo's grin went even wider. He looked at his son with unmistakable pride and affection, as if to say, "See, everyone's impressed with your car." Lin Yang let out a small smile and shook his head. His father's happiness needed no explanation. For Lin Weiguo, the car wasn't just transport. It was a trophy that let him walk a little taller in the village. When they got home, the scent of hot dishes greeted them at the door. Inside, a large table was piled with food. His mother was bustling in the kitchen, and Chen Qingqing moved gracefully between kitchen and dining room, helping to serve. Hearing their footsteps, Chen Qingqing looked up, saw Lin Yang and his father, and smiled brightly. "Uncle, you're back." Lin Weiguo's gaze zeroed in on Chen Qingqing. He nudged his son and asked in a low, excited voice, "Xiao Yang, this your girlfriend?" Lin Yang waved him off quickly. "Dad, no, we're just friends." For a moment, disappointment flickered across Lin Weiguo's face, but it was gone almost immediately. He laughed heartily. "Friends are fine. Friends are fine. The more you see each other, the sooner things will happen." Yang Keixia stepped forward, gently tugging at her husband's arm with a reproachful smile. "Don't blurt things out like that and scare her off," she chided softly. "If she's interested, they'll get together in time. No need to rush." Lin Weiguo nodded, looking suddenly enlightened, and his laughter bubbled up again. Right. Our son is so excellent. Girls will like him. No need to hurry." The house filled with warmth and laughter. After dinner, the sunset faded like a slow, splendid painting, and dusk fell quietly over the village. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing said their goodbyes to his parents. The elder Lin stood in the doorway, waving and smiling, their faces full of care and well wishes. On the drive back to the county town, the car's interior felt soft and peaceful. Chen Qingqing leaned back with her eyes half closed, tired but content, a small smile lingering from the evening with Lin Yang's family. When they reached the town, Lin Yang found a decent hotel and checked her in, finally allowing himself to relax. They arranged for him to pick her up early the next morning so they could visit Wang, her former teacher. After he left, Chen Qingqing dialed Wang's number. On the other end, his voice was warm and surprised. "Qingqing, you remembered me? I'm so glad." "We never forget your kindness," Chen Qingqing said. "Would it be all right if we came by tomorrow?" Of course. I'll call the classmates who are still around, and we can have a little reunion. I'll treat you to a meal," Wang replied enthusiastically. Chen Qingqing agreed at once. After she hung up, she lay back on the bed and let her thoughts drift to school days. Wang had been her homeroom teacher in junior high, strict and conscientious, but always attentive to his students' lives. When her parents divorced and she was sent to live with her grandmother, it was Wang's patient guidance that helped her through the worst of it. Chapter 92. Unlock new system features again. The next morning, Lin Yang got up early, washed quickly, and had a simple breakfast. He drove to the county hotel to pick up Chen Qingqing so they could visit teacher Wang. When he arrived at Tianhua Hotel, he parked at the entrance and walked into the lobby. He chose a sofa by the window, sat down, called Chen Qingqing, and waited quietly. Not long after, the crisp sound of high heels approached. Lin Yang looked up to see Chen Qingqing coming toward him, but he immediately noticed something different about her. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she'd just been crying. "Is everything okay? What happened?" Lin Yang asked, concerned. Chen Qingqing lowered her head and, her voice thick, said, "I just remembered some unhappy things from my childhood. Do you know why I studied here for a while in junior high?" Lin Yang shook his head. In his mind, Chen Qingqing had always seemed to come from a wealthy family, so the idea of her studying in a small county school felt out of place. Chen Qingqing took a deep breath and told him slowly, "Back then, my parents fought every day and didn't have time for me. They sent me to my grandmother's house while they argued. After they divorced, my father came and picked me up." Lin Yang reached out and spoke softly. "It's all in the past now. Let those things stay in the past. From now on, things will get better." At that moment, a crisp system chime sounded in Lin Yang's mind. Ding! Deep communication with an intelligent subject has randomly unlocked a new system function. A second prompt followed. Ding, system expanded function unlocked. Specify, consumes 5 unread intelligence entries to specify 1 intelligence entry related to the push condition. Lin Yang blinked, surprised. He had previously received system rewards after making deep contact with Chen Qingqing when he first obtained her intelligence, and he'd assumed that was all. He hadn't expected a casual, heartfelt conversation to trigger another system reward. The realization settled in. Certain kinds of interaction with an intelligent subject could yield unexpected benefits. He thought about the new function and felt a surge of excitement. Until now, the intelligence he received had been entirely random. What he got depended on luck. Now, he could intentionally target the kind of intelligence he needed. If he wanted a tip about the stock market, for example, he could spend 5 unread intelligence entries to lock the system onto a stock-related push and guarantee a precise intelligence entry about stocks. It was an incredibly practical and powerful tool. Across the county, Zhang Chao, Huang Huang, and Liu Xin had also started their day early. Since graduating, they'd returned to their hometowns and settled into steady, ordinary lives. The night before, their junior high homeroom teacher, Teacher Wang, had called to say Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing were back and planning to visit. She'd enthusiastically invited them all to come. So Zhang Chao drove to pick up Huang Huang and Liu Xin, carrying carefully prepared gifts for Teacher Wang. Huang Huang, how's your plan to buy a car going? Zhang Chao asked with a smile as he steered. Huang Huang sighed. Don't even mention it. With my current income, buying a car wouldn't be hard, but if I buy a car, I won't have the down payment for a house. It's a choice between a car and a house, and I'm torn. You've got to think it through, Zhang Chao said. Lu Xin, sitting in the back, chimed in. I really envy you, Zhang Chao. Working for the county government, an iron rice bowl, good benefits, you already have a house and a car at such a young age. Zhang Chao smiled with satisfaction. Just luck. I'm content. It's not like the big city, but here life's less stressful. Maybe I'll even live a few years longer. They laughed as they drove, and the car passed the entrance to Tianhua Hotel. Huang Huang suddenly leaned forward, eyes wide as if he'd discovered a new continent. Hey, slow down! Isn't that a looking up U8 at the hotel entrance? Zhang Chao and Liu Xin glanced over and saw a flashy SUV parked by the curb. It does look like one. When did our county get a looking up U8? That's the kind of car only real rich bosses drive, Liu Xin said. Yeah, Zhang Chao agreed. Plenty of people can afford a million-plus car, but most wouldn't spend that much on something like a looking up unless they didn't care about showing off their status. Only the truly wealthy would buy one. As they talked, a man and a woman walked out of the hotel. Huang Huang rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Isn't that Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing? Zhang Chao, pull over and pick them up. Okay. Zhang Chao turned the wheel and steered the car to the hotel entrance. Lin Yang, Chen Qingqing, come on, hop in. We're heading to Teacher Wang's place, Zhang Chao called warmly. Lin Yang felt a warmth at seeing his old classmates. He smiled. No thanks, I'll drive myself. He'd left the gifts for Teacher Wang in his car, and it would be more convenient to take his own vehicle. Zhang Chao, Huang Huang, and Liu Xin were surprised. They hadn't expected Lin Yang to have bought a car just 2 years after graduating. Lin Yang, you even bought a car, Huang Huang said, envious. Just got lucky. You guys go on ahead. We'll catch up, Lin Yang said with a modest smile. See you in a bit. Zhang Chao started the car and drove away. As they pulled away, Huang Huang caught a glimpse in his rearview mirror of Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing getting into that striking looking-up U8. His eyes went wide. Guess what I just saw? Quit messing and tell us, Zhang Chao and Liu Xin urged. I saw Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing get into that looking-up U8. No way. That car costs over $1 million. There's no way Lin Yang could afford that so soon after graduating. Really, I didn't see it wrong. I'm sure of it. Huang Huang's voice was full of shock. If that's true, Lin Yang's incredible. He was outstanding in school, and I didn't expect him to be doing this well now. Liu Xin let out an exclamation of astonishment, and the three of them kept driving, minds buzzing with the image of their old classmate in a car few in the county could afford. Chapter 93. Your uncle is going to marry a fool. On the second floor of Shangxi Lufan Zhuang, in a private room, Li Li, Peng Ding, Yu Dading, Panjin Zhang Rui were already gathered around the table. Several plates of complimentary melon seeds sat in the center. Everyone cracked seeds and chatted, their laughter filling the room. Li Li sighed, eyes soft with wistfulness. Yu Dading, among those of us who stayed in the county, apart from Zhang Chao, you've done the best. If I'd had your nerve back then and gone into business with you, maybe I wouldn't be worrying about the shop now. He let out a small, rueful sigh. The traditional medicine pharmacy he'd inherited was doing worse every year. The fast pace of modern life and the dwindling belief in TCM had left him struggling. Yu Dading smiled modestly, though pride showed through. I was just lucky, he said. I made some money, but I couldn't have done it without Zhang Chao. He helped me with a few things, otherwise the factory wouldn't have gone so smoothly. He lifted his teacup, took a sip, then added, besides, in a small county, even if you have money, you still have to play by other people's expectations. That's true, Li Li said with a teasing look. Everyone knows you and Zhang Chao are close. With him here, who'd dare make things hard for you? Pan Qing set her cup down gently. Is that your new Land Rover parked out front? She asked Yu Dading. He nodded, smiling. Just bought it. Sometimes a car is part of the image. Driving it to a meeting gives you confidence. The Land Rover had given him status. Partners trusted him more. Pan Qing took another sip and asked, I heard Teacher Wang is treating us to welcome Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. Do you know what they're up to now? At that, the entire table quieted. Everyone was suddenly eager. I know Lin Yang. He stayed in the provincial capital after graduation. Chen Qingqing? She transferred schools before finishing junior high. No one's heard from her in years. The private room door creaked open and a voice called, Hello everyone. Long time no see. Heads turned. Huang Huang and Lu Xin followed Zhang Chao inside. The room brightened the moment they entered. Li Li stood, clapped Zhang Chao on the shoulder, and grinned. Zhang Chao! Finally! We were just saying your backing has made Dading's factory run smoothly. Zhang Chao waved them off, looking modest. Don't flatter me. Dading's the one with the vision. I only helped with a few small favors. We're old classmates. I do what I can. Sit here, Yu Dading said at once, beaming as he pulled out a chair for Zhang Chao. He never forgot how much Zhang Chao had helped him. Pan Qing poured tea and handed him a cup. Zhang Chao smiled and took a sip, then added with a hint of mystery, I just passed Lin Yang on the way here. He was driving a Yangwang U8. The Yangwang U8? The one that costs over $1 million. Pan Qing covered her mouth in surprise. Yes, Zhang Chao said, eyes wide. That car isn't for everyone. Li Li nearly dropped his melon seeds, imagining the contrast with his own struggling pharmacy and modest car. Peng Ding nodded, remembering Lin Yang in school, the top student, always disciplined and praised. He was the best of us back then, Peng Ding said. Seems like he's done well. Yu Dading admitted he'd been tempted by the Yangwang's tech, but chose the Land Rover because it fit the image he needed in the county. Recognizable, respectable. If he were truly rich, he'd buy whatever he wanted. Before the conversation could go further, the door opened again. Hello, old classmates, Lin Yang's voice rang out. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing stood in the doorway. Their clothes were simple, but they carried themselves with an inner confidence that drew everyone's attention. In a small county, that quiet assurance stood out. After a brief stunned silence, Zhang jumped up and pulled 2 chairs closer. Lin Yang, Chen Qingqing, come sit. We're all old classmates. Don't be formal. Other than the main seat for Teacher Wang, sit wherever you like. Lin Yang smiled and took the offered seat, Chen Qingqing beside him. Pan Qing poured fresh tea. Lin Yang, Chen Qingqing, have some tea. Sitting among his old classmates, Lin Yang felt unexpectedly moved. He hadn't expected these friendships to still feel so genuine after so many years. Unlike the university reunions he'd attended, where people had grown snobbish and success determined worth, this gathering felt honest. The classmates who had stayed in the county might not have great ambitions, he thought, but their hearts were simple and pure. That made their fellowship feel even more precious. Just then, Lin Yang's phone buzzed. He saw it was his mother and answered. Before he could speak, his mother's anxious voice came through. Xiaoyang, come home quickly. Your little uncle is in trouble. What happened to little uncle? Lin Yang asked, alarmed. His little uncle was only 2 years older than him. They'd practically grown up together, more like brothers than uncle and nephew. Your little uncle must be crazy, his mother snapped. He insists on marrying a fool. You have the best relationship with him. Hurry home and talk him out of it. Chapter 94. He deserves it. When Lin Yang heard that his little uncle was not in mortal danger, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he was going to be all right, that was what mattered. Still, he couldn't understand it. His little uncle was so accomplished, a university graduate, young and handsome. Why would he want to marry that simple-minded girl? Had something happened to make him mentally unstable? He needed to get home and find out what was going on. "Mom, don't worry, I'll be back soon," he said into the phone, trying to calm his mother's voice. "All right, just come straight to Grandma's house," his mother replied. He insisted on taking the household registration book to get a marriage certificate with the girl from the brick factory. We couldn't persuade him, so we had to lock him in his room. Lin Yang knew about that brick factory. In the neighboring village, the boss had a daughter who was known to be simple-minded. Rumor had it she'd been born with defects because her parents were close relatives. The boss doted on her, never treating her badly for it. He gave her whatever she wanted and would fiercely protect anyone who crossed her. Had his little uncle somehow provoked the brick factory boss? This could turn into something big. He needed to get home and sort it out. He hung up and turned to his classmates, apologetic. "Sorry, something urgent has come up in my family. I have to go. This is the gift I prepared for Teacher Wang. Please give it to her for me." "Hey, Lin Yang, is everything okay with your family?" his classmates asked, concern in their voices. "If you need anything, just say. We'll help if we can." "Thanks, everyone. It's not too serious. Please apologize to Teacher Wang for me when you see her. I'm going now." He set the gift on the table and hurried out. Near lunchtime, Teacher Wang arrived, apologizing as she walked in. "Sorry to keep you waiting. I just finished another class." "It's all right," the students replied, understanding. When Teacher Wang looked around and didn't see Lin Yang, she asked, "Where's Lin Yang? He's always so punctual. Why isn't he here today?" "Teacher Wang, Lin Yang had an urgent family matter and just went to handle it. He asked us to apologize for him and left this gift for you," Chen Qingqing said, handing over the package Lin Yang had left. Teacher Wang took the exquisite red box and sniffed. "What is this? It smells medicinal." "It's ginseng. It calms and restores," blurted a sharp-nosed boy as the box went around. Li, whose family ran a traditional Chinese medicine shop and knew about these things, leaned in, eyes wide. "Humph, this is no ordinary ginseng." "Do ginsengs really smell different?" someone asked. Li nodded eagerly. "This scent, only decades-old ginseng has it. Decades-old ginseng is rare, and its medicinal value is far greater than ordinary ginseng. A root as thick as a finger and 40 to 50 years old could easily be worth 200,000 yuan or more." Teacher Wang's face changed. She had assumed the gift was something modest, a few hundred yuan at most. She opened the box and saw a ginseng root the thickness of a finger, its fine tendrils intact and perfectly preserved. According to Li, it was likely worth well over 200,000 yuan. "This is too much. I can't accept such an extravagant gift," she said firmly, though her voice betrayed surprise and pride that Lin Yang could afford it. "Please, Teacher Wang, take it." "It's Lin Yang's sincerity," Chen Qingqing urged. "He's doing really well. He must think very highly of you to give something like this." "Yes, you've been our teacher for so many years. If you reject this, he'll feel bad," Zhang Rui added. One by one, the classmates echoed the sentiment, pressing the gift on her. "Is Lin Yang really doing that well?" Teacher Wang asked. She had heard gossip that he stayed in the provincial capital after graduation and hadn't returned for years. She had worried his life outside must be difficult. Now their descriptions painted a different picture. "Do you know what car he drives now?" a student asked. "A Yangwang U8, worth over 1,000,000 yuan. Yu Dading, who ran a Shaanxi bacon factory in town and supplied the whole province, couldn't help but chime in. If even Yu Dading said so, perhaps Lin Yang had done very well for himself. "He's changed a lot," said another. "When he walked into the room, I barely recognized him. He looked confident, steady, like someone who's seen the world and found success." Pan Qing nodded. He's completely different from before. Teacher Wang listened to them and felt her heart swell. She remembered the young Lin Yang in her classroom, bright, eager, top of the class, always full of ambition despite his ordinary family background. Hearing that he'd worked hard and found success pleased her deeply. "He's earned it," she said with a smile. "But I still can't accept this ginseng. Your thoughts are enough." Chapter 95. Give birth to a grandson to inherit the family property. Shortly after Lin Yang drove off, his phone rang urgently. Chen Qingqing's name flashed on the screen. He put the call on speaker and answered, concern in his voice. "Hello? Is something wrong?" On the other end, Chen Qingqing sounded anxious and clear. Li Li recognized the ginseng and mentioned its value. Teacher Wang said the ginseng is too precious and refused to accept it. Lin Yang felt his chest tighten. They had expected Teacher Wang to hesitate if she knew how valuable the ginseng was. That was why they hadn't mentioned its worth in the first place. They hadn't counted on Li Li. Since Li Li's family ran a traditional medicine shop, it was only natural he would recognize it. His mind drifted back to middle school, to the years his family had been poor, and he'd been full of self-consciousness. He'd been timid at school, afraid to speak up even when he knew the answer. It was Teacher Wang, warm, patient, encouraging, who had pulled him out of that dark place. She'd spoken to him after class, helped with his studies and life, and bit by bit, he'd gained confidence. Lin Yang had always kept gratitude and grievances carefully separated. For years, he'd owed Teacher Wang without a way to repay her. Now that he'd made a name for himself in the provincial city and had the means, he wanted to do everything he could to repay her. He paused, thought a moment, and said quietly, "If Teacher Wang refuses, we won't force it. We'll repay her in other ways." "All right," Chen Qingqing replied briefly. Lin Yang hung up with a hint of resolve and put his attention back on the road. Half an hour later, he arrived at his maternal grandmother's house on the far side of town. His grandmother, mother, and two aunts were peering anxiously from the doorway. Seeing him, the tension in their faces finally eased. His maternal grandfather had died early. His two maternal uncles were migrant workers who were away most of the year. With only women at home, they could manage small matters, but when a big problem came up, they felt helpless. Normally, they could call Lin Weiguo, Lin Yang's father, but this time even he felt stumped. In desperation, they'd called Lin Yang, certain that his education and experience would produce a solution. "Xiaoyang, you have to go talk to your little uncle. He insists on marrying that idiot from the brick factory and getting a marriage certificate. Go in and talk some sense into him," his grandmother urged, clutching his hand, voice shaking with worry. "Don't worry," Lin Yang said, trying to steady them. "I'll go in and see what's going on." He climbed the stairs to little uncle's room. His uncle sat on the edge of the bed, calm-faced but stubborn in his posture. "Little uncle," Lin Yang began, keeping his tone gentle and casual, "I hear you're going to marry that girl from the brick factory. Is that true?" "It's true. Don't try to stop me. My mind's made up," his uncle replied curtly, meeting Lin Yang's eyes without any panic, just an odd steadiness. Lin Yang found that unsettling. This man seemed perfectly ordinary. He didn't act like someone whose judgment had been compromised. There had to be a reason. Lin Yang decided to probe slowly, opening with small talk to put his uncle at ease. He pulled over a chair and sat opposite him, offering a friendly smile. "How's work been lately?" His uncle answered in short, flat tones, neither warm nor cold. Lin Yang tried to kindle some nostalgia, old stories from their childhood when his uncle had taken him fishing, moments meant to crack his reserve and draw out an explanation. A hint of a smile crossed the uncle's face at the memories, but it faded quickly. Lin Yang realized his uncle was wary. No matter how he steered the conversation, he wouldn't reveal anything. Lin Yang stared at him, outwardly calm, while his mind churned. He watched every subtle movement, every twitch, but his uncle remained composed. Changing tack, Lin Yang cleared his throat and spoke more directly, though still gently. "I'm not against you getting married. I just worry. Marriage isn't a small thing, and that girl—" His uncle interrupted with a stiff tone. "I know what you mean. She's not in her right mind, but I don't care." He looked down and tapped the bed edge, fingers betraying unease. Lin Yang pressed on. "You graduated from university. You're young and presentable. You could find someone. His uncle gave a faint, bitter smile. Some things you just don't understand. And then he fell silent. The room grew heavy with unspoken words. Only a bird outside and the soft tapping of his uncle's fingers broke the quiet. Lin Yang felt increasingly anxious. He knew his uncle's nature. Once he decided on something, it was hard to change him. But he couldn't stand by while his uncle rushed into a marriage that might be ruinous. He resolved to find out the truth and help him escape whatever had driven him to this decision. Meanwhile, in the director's office at the brick factory in the village beside Phoenix Village, Duwenge and his wife Liu Wan sat with the door closed, speaking in low, urgent tones. Liu Wan's brow was creased with worry. "Husband, are you sure this will work?" she asked. Duwenge smiled with something cruel in it. "I'll threaten them. I don't believe Xiao Yangfeng will refuse. If he behaves and treats my daughter well, I'll accept him as a son-in-law. If not, don't blame me for being ruthless." Liu Wan bit her lip, still uncertain. "Are you sure the things Old Master buried are under their house?" Duwenge pounded his chest with confidence. "Of course. Old Master was a landlord. He had a lot back then. When the landlords were being targeted, he knew and buried most of his valuables in the backyard. Those antiques are worth a fortune now. Millions, maybe tens of millions each. Once we dig them up, we won't need this brick factory anymore. We can live in comfort." He leaned forward, smug. "The Yang family house sits right above the Du family's ancestral backyard. Where else could they be? I only realized this recently while sorting through my old man's things." Li Wan's face lit up with a hungry smile. "You're so clever. Xiao Yangfeng is educated and handsome. When he gives us a grandson, our fortune will have an heir. It's perfect." Duwenge's plan was simple and brutal. Force or intimidate Xiao Yangfeng into marrying their daughter, use a renovation as cover to dig up the buried antiques, and walk away rich. The couple exchanged looks of greedy anticipation, convinced their scheme would succeed. Chapter 96. Familiar Techniques. Lin Yang tried every way he could think of to get his little uncle to explain why he'd suddenly married a fool. His little uncle stayed silent. Frustrated, Lin Yang let the matter drop for the moment and thought about other options. Then an idea struck him. The system had just unlocked a new feature. If he spent 5 unread intelligence items, he could retrieve a single piece of intelligence within a specified range. Maybe the system could reveal whatever his little uncle was hiding. He stood up. "Little uncle, if you've made up your mind, I won't force you. Rest well. I'll go out for a bit." He forced his voice to sound casual, to hide the turmoil inside. "Xiaoyang," Yangfeng called out suddenly, as if he wanted to say something. But a threatening memory cut him off, the voice in his head from Duwenge, the brick factory boss. "Don't be ungrateful. Think of your family. Sudden drownings, sudden car accidents, sudden..." Yangfeng swallowed the words. Everyone within 10 miles knew what Duwenge was: ruthless, lawless, and capable of anything. If Yangfeng refused to cooperate, Duwenge didn't need to lift a finger. His men could make life hell for Yangfeng's family. Marrying someone, anyone, was still marriage, and marrying a fool might reduce a lot of trouble. Sacrificing his own happiness to keep his family safe seemed the only reasonable choice. "It's nothing. You can go," Yangfeng said instead. Lin Yang felt the unsaid words hang in the air and sighed inwardly. He had sensed that his little uncle had almost spoken, only to be silenced by fear. He turned reluctantly, walked out of the room, and closed the door gently. Immediately, his grandmother, his mother, and 2 aunts clustered around him. "Xiaoyang, how was it? Did he say anything?" they asked. Lin Yang shook his head. "No, but try not to worry too much. For now, watch him closely. Don't let him do anything rash. We should be able to figure out why in a few days." He had calculated the timing. Weekly intelligence pushed automatically every Sunday. Today was already Thursday, so 3 days until the next batch. He only hoped that the push would include enough new items so he could use the system's new function, spend 5 unread pieces, and specify 1 relevant intelligence item. Early the next morning, before dawn, Lin Yang was jolted awake by an urgent call. Groggy, he fumbled for his phone and instantly snapped alert when he saw Hu Qian on the screen. "Hello? What's so urgent?" he asked. On the other end, Hu Qian's voice came through breathless and almost shouting. "Lin Yang, check the news now. It's gone viral that the report about Foodie Battery's solid-state battery mass production is fake, confirmed by multiple sources. If nothing else happens, Foodie Battery's stock will tank when the market opens. A faint smile curved Lin Yang's lips. This wasn't a surprise. He'd expected it. He remembered clearly the intelligence he'd received last Sunday. Liu Shangdong, Foodie Battery's second-largest shareholder, planned to use his shares to depress the stock price, cause panic selling by retail investors, and then buy up shares. Liu Shangdong had finally acted on Friday, the last trading day of the week. Lin Yang imagined him in his plush office, convinced his plan was flawless, release negative news to drive down the price, snap up shares at a low, and over the weekend expose the rumors as false. When trading resumed, the stock would surge, and the retail investors who'd sold would have no chance to re-enter. What Liu Shangdong didn't know was that Lin Yang had learned of the plot days ago. Everything Liu Shangdong had done only paved the way for Lin Yang to profit. A thought struck Lin Yang. The tactic felt familiar. Last time, Foodie Battery had leaked negative news before the market opened, triggering panic selling and giving him the chance to pick up shares. Now it was happening again. Negative news ahead of the market, panic selling, then an opportunity to acquire. Was the same person behind both incidents? If so, whoever it was in for bad luck. Intercepted by Lin Yang twice, they'd have reason to worry. Lin Yang chuckled softly. Okay, buy as many shares as possible, at all costs. Got it, Hu Qian replied, puzzled by how calm he sounded. He'd known about this in advance. How? She'd had her people monitoring Foodie Battery around the clock and called the moment the news broke. She decided not to overthink it. After the last episode, her faith in Lin Yang was absolute. She only needed to follow his lead. She hung up and sent an order to the work group. At everyone, come an hour early and go all out to execute Mr. Lin's plan. The reply stream filled with received messages. Everyone headed to the office without hesitation. By 8:30 a.m., an hour before the market opened, Hu Qian's team was in place at their desks, ready. The office buzzed with tense excitement. Every face was focused and expectant. They all knew the stakes. Today's execution could determine the success of Lin Yang's plan and the team's reputation and future. Hu Qian stood in the center of the room and scanned the team with a sharp, encouraging look. Everyone understand today's task? Clear, they answered together, voices loud and confident. Good, proceed according to plan and report any issues to me immediately. Satisfied, she nodded and watched them return to their stations. Some booted up trading software and ran last-minute system checks. Others tracked the fluctuating market data on large screens and analyzed trends. A few coordinated with major brokerages and trading platforms to ensure trading channels were unobstructed. At a critical moment like this, every detail mattered. Not a single step could go wrong. The team worked with absolute focus, executing each task precisely. On the top floor of Xing City's towering financial building, inside the director's office of Xinzong Securities, the air was heavy with tension. Zhang Zhiguo sat behind the wide desk, his gaze hard as he looked at his assistant standing before him. He spoke slowly, every word measured. There must be no mistakes this time. If you can't complete the plan, don't bother coming in tomorrow. Yes, the assistant blurted, sweat beading on his forehead. He wiped his face and hurried out to organize the operation. About a month earlier, before the press that Foodie Battery would soon mass-produce solid-state batteries, a quiet battle for capital had already begun. Zhang Zhiguo and Foodie's deputy factory manager had colluded to drive down Foodie's stock, planning to buy in at rock-bottom prices and reap a huge profit. They poured in capital and thought they had everything under control. Then, at the last moment, a wild card appeared. Someone bought a large block of shares and completely foiled their scheme. Not only did they miss the stake they'd planned to buy, they also lost a great deal of money. The blow was severe. Zhang ordered a full investigation. It turned up a surprising lead. A stock consultant from Xingcheng Securities had been acting on behalf of a client. There was no trace linking that client to Foodie Battery. It looked like a pure, inconvenient coincidence. The discovery hardly calmed Zhang's anger. The news about Foodie's solid-state breakthrough proved true, and the stock promptly surged. In just over a dozen trading days, Foodie Battery rocketed from 3.6 yuan a share to 31.2 yuan, an increase of more than 8 times. Market value jumped from 330 million to 2.83 billion yuan. With control of solid-state technology, Foodie seemed poised to become a trillion yuan company in time. In Zhang's mind, even buying at today's prices would yield returns by the hundreds when Foodie matured. Everyone holding Foodie shares treated them as treasures and wouldn't sell, which made it impossible for newcomers to buy in. Zhang wasn't about to let that fortune slip away. Like a predator that had been denied a kill, he kept hunting. He found an ally in Liu Shangdong, Foodie's second-largest shareholder, and they planned to try the same ploy again. This time, they would seed false news that Foodie had not mastered solid-state technology, spook the market into selling, and then scoop up the shares. Zhang had learned from the earlier failure. He wasn't insisting on pushing the stock to its absolute low. Instead, he planned to move the moment the previous large buyers began to panic and sell, and he would not let the opportunity escape. Report, Director. The news we released has taken effect. The rumor that Foodie hasn't mastered solid-state tech is spreading. If anyone starts selling, they'll take the bait, his assistant announced, bursting into the office with excitement. Good. Keep monitoring it, Zhang said, a thin smile of satisfaction flashing in his eyes as he returned to the screen. At 9:30 on the dot, the market bell rang. Under the weight of the planted story, some retail investors panicked first. Faced with relentless negative headlines, their confidence crumbled, and they began to sell, small volumes at first, hardly more than pebbles tossed into the ocean. Then larger holders grew nervous. They were sensitive to sentiment and didn't want to see their positions evaporate, so they started selling as well. With big blocks hitting the market, the price dropped sharply. Retail traders, watching the fall, became convinced the story was true. Panic fed panic. The sell-off snowballed until the market was in chaos and Foodie's stock was being liquidated en masse. At Xingcheng Securities, in their manager's office, Hu Qian sat upright in front of her monitor, eyes locked on the scrolling numbers. Her mouse moved steadily between charts and order books. She frowned occasionally, nodded at other moments, and tracked the flow of trades with the practiced calm of someone who had spent years in finance. To her, every price movement was psychological warfare, a clash of nerves and strategy where a single decision could shift the balance. The sudden, abnormal drop in Foodie's price registered immediately. A smile creased her lips, not of relief, but of keen calculation. This was too neat to be coincidence. Someone was manufacturing fear to force sales. They were trying to fish her out by creating fake news and a panic. But she wasn't an ordinary mark. Lin Yang had told her to buy any Foodie shares that appeared for sale by any means necessary. She had sources of information Lin trusted, and her mission was to convert opportunity into holdings. So that's it. They're fishing, she murmured to herself, cold amusement in her voice. Let's see who's the fish and who's the fisherman. Chapter 98, 44%, the largest shareholder behind the scenes. In the manager's office at Xingcheng Securities, Hu Qian's eyes shone with confidence as she summoned her assistant, Xiao Zhang. Go tell them to sell 1% of the shares Mr. Lin holds, she ordered. Manager, why? Xiao Zhang frowned. It didn't make sense to him. Foodie Battery had a bright future. Selling now seemed inexplicable. More importantly, he knew Lin Yang was determined to acquire Foodie Battery. Why would they sell? Hu Qian smiled patiently. They're setting a trap, trying to trick us into selling by manufacturing bad news and giving the impression we're panicking. If we sell a little, they'll assume we've fallen for it, but are still hesitating. To make us give up, they'll keep dumping shares to push the price down. When they've sold enough, we'll move in and sweep everything up. Understanding dawned on Xiao Zhang, and he couldn't help but admire her. The manager's experience and attention to detail are impressive, he thought. Following her instructions, the team sprang into action. They executed orders across trading terminals and sold 1% of the Foodie Battery shares registered to Lin Yang. The move was a small splash that sent ripples through the market. At Zhongshan Securities in the Shanghai Financial Building, Zhang Jiguo and Liu Shangdong were watching Foodie Battery's price tick down. When they saw shares being sold, pleasure flashed across their faces. Finally, the bait had been taken. Increase the selling pressure, keep driving the price down, and make them lose confidence, Zhang Jiguo barked. laughing triumphantly. As he pushed Liu Xiangdong's account to sell more, the stock plunged like a kite with a frayed string. Panic spread, and retail investors, spooked by the slide, began offloading shares too. What Zhang didn't expect was that every move was anticipated by Hu Qian. She watched the screens with a barely contained excitement. "Prepare to act. Watch the market closely," she told her team, voice taut with anticipation. Her hands trembled slightly, an old habit before big decisions, but her gaze was steady, as if she already saw victory. The office fell into a tense silence. Fingers hovered over keyboards, breaths were held. They knew this moment would decide everything, whether Lin Yang's plan would succeed. When the price had been pushed to the right level and enough shares had been sold, Hu Qian gave the order. "Act now. Buy all the shares." Her team executed with lightning speed, placing aggressive buy orders and scooping up the shares on offer. They hit the highest available prices, instantly halting the slide and pushing the stock to its daily limit up. The volume was staggering. Hu Qian deployed the full 400 million yuan from Lin Yang's account, leaving no opening. Zhang Jiguo and his team were blindsided. There was no time to react. "What's going on? Weren't they selling?" Zhang's face went pale, sweat beading on his brow. Panic and fury flooded him. "Have we been played? Did they know our plan all along? Is there a mole?" He watched in disbelief as every share they had pushed onto the market was swallowed up. The scheme not only failed, but backfired, leaving them exposed and back where they'd started. Zhang slumped into his chair, rage and helplessness mingling. After a long moment, he grabbed his phone. 10 million, whatever it takes. Find the guy who bought those Foodie battery shares today and make him give them up, he snarled into the line. Back at Xingcheng, cheers erupted. "We did it! We did it!" The team hugged, faces alight with victory. Hu Qian allowed herself a relieved smile. She knew this outcome was the result of Lin Yang's precise judgment and the plan they had executed. She phoned him. "Mr. Lin, we succeeded. Using 20 accounts, we acquired 15 million Foodie battery shares. You now hold 40 million shares, or 44%. You're the largest shareholder." Lin Yang's voice on the line was calm. "Very good. Well done." Hu Qian had been careful. No single account held more than 5% of the company's outstanding shares, so none triggered the reporting requirement for large holdings. By spreading purchases across 20 accounts, they avoided the disclosure rules and stayed hidden behind the scenes. Lin Yang could remain a silent, controlling presence while Foodie Battery grew. 44% meant that if Foodie Battery's market value soared into the trillions, his net worth would surpass 440 billion. For now, those shares would stay untouched. Once moved, anything could happen. Liu Xiangdong had worked with Zhang Jiguo to buy more shares of Foodie Battery. The plan had seemed straightforward, but the result was the opposite of what he'd expected. Not only had he failed to increase his stake, he'd sold half of what he already owned. He could not accept it. Those shares might one day be worth a fortune, and what he sold now could cost him a small fortune to buy back. The blame fell squarely on Zhang Jiguo. Zhang had assured him, solemnly, that if he followed the plan, he'd be able to pick up more shares. Greed had played its part. Liu was already the second largest shareholder, but who wouldn't want to be bigger? Everything, however, went wrong. The scheme was to leak fake news and then sell some shares to drive the price down, coaxing others to panic sell so they could be bought cheaply. Only some small retail investors followed, just enough to depress the price, but the real target didn't panic. Worse, the real buyer snapped up every share Liu had put on the market. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He grabbed his phone and called Zhang. "Explain why this happened." "You'll cover all the losses today, or you'll wish you were dead," Liu snarled. Zhang was shaken. He hadn't realized Liu would be so merciless. "Brother Dong, I was wrong. Give me time. I promise I'll get all your lost shares back." After the Foodie Battery episode, Lin Yang turned his attention back to his little uncle. For 2 days, the uncle, Yang Feng, had stubbornly insisted on marrying the brick factory boss's dim-witted daughter. No amount of pleading from his mother, grandmother, or aunt would change his mind. Everyone was sick with worry. Lin Yang calmed them. Wait 2 more days. The weekly intelligence system would push a new batch of reports on Sunday, and he could use the specify function to target relevant intelligence. That would give them answers. Sunday came, and the system pinged him as soon as he woke. Weekly intelligence had been pushed. Lin Yang opened the panel. Only 4 pieces this week. That was a problem. Specifying relevant intelligence required 5 unread pieces. There was a reset function, though, which could reshuffle the current intelligence once per push. Its results were random, and it could be used each time new intelligence arrived. The system also tracked cumulative resets. After 3 total resets, the system would guarantee a high-value intelligence item. Lin Yang had used reset once before. This was his second chance. He hit reset. A system message confirmed the change and noted his cumulative resets. 2. The 4 items multiplied into 10. He was pleasantly surprised. This reset had turned 4 into 10, just as a previous reset had once turned 3 into 6. Whether it was luck or the system's hidden probabilities, Lin Yang didn't care. 10 pieces meant he could use the specify function twice. He tapped specify, chose people, and then selected Yang Feng from the list of recent contacts. The system consumed 5 unread items and generated a specified intelligence report. The report was detailed. Yang Feng had been coerced by Du Wenge, the brick factory director, who threatened the safety of Yang Feng's family to force the marriage. Yang Feng had agreed, choosing to sacrifice himself to protect his family. The root of Du Wenge's motive lay in the Du family's history. They had once been major landlords, and during the land reform, their ancestors hid much of their property, valuables and antiques, buried in the backyard of the old Du family house. The Yang family's old house happened to occupy that exact backyard. While sorting his father's belongings, Du Wengji had uncovered clues to the hidden treasure and saw an opportunity. By marrying his daughter into the Yang household, he could engineer renovations or reconstruction that would let him dig under cover and retrieve the buried trove, all without drawing attention. It was a perfect plan. Get the son-in-law for free and unearth the fortune without paying for it. The clarity stunned Lin Yang. Now everything made sense. His uncle's obstinacy was not romantic fervor or madness, but coercion rooted in greed and threat. Du Wenge was exactly the sort of man who would use a marriage as cover to plunder a neighbor's property. And he was dangerous. Reports about forced labor and abuse at black brick factories were common, and Du Wenge had powerful backers who made him untouchable. As long as that patron remained in place, Du Wenge could act with impunity. If he got what he wanted, Lin Yang's family would have no peace. The threat had to be removed, ideally before Du could act, but it would require careful, long-term planning. Lin Yang stopped specifying intelligence and opened the remaining 5 weekly entries. The first item made his heart skip. Fenghuang County had issued a public notice banning the use of red, blue, and black signs for businesses, offices, and public places, recommending green instead. The notice warned that the policy could spark a public outcry. If it did, pressure could mount to hold whoever was behind the policy accountable and remove them from office. That hit home. Whoever could impose such a county-wide directive clearly had significant influence, the kind of patron who could shield Du Wenge. If that person were exposed and removed, Du Wenge would lose his protection and collapse with him. The opportunity was too good to ignore. Lin Yang's mind began racing with possibilities. This was the opening they needed. Chapter 100. Don't be greedy for cheap things. You won't be fooled. Weekly Intelligence 2. High-Value Intelligence. In the Yang family old house, 50 centimeters beneath the first-floor utility room, there is a hidden box. It contains countless antiques, gold, and silver. Once excavated, they can be claimed. Please keep confidential. Another piece of high-value intelligence appeared. Based on past patterns, this meant the contents were worth at least 40 to 50 million yuan. The Yang family old house was his grandmother's old home. Combine that with the specific location, and it meant the box in the utility room was the family fortune that Du Wenge's father had hidden during the land reform. If little uncle hadn't married that fool, Du Wengji would have tried every trick to force the marriage and then find a way into the old house to dig up whatever was buried. But changing the signboard and setting things in motion would take time to ferment. Until then, Du Wenge had backing, someone behind him, so there had been nothing they could do. How to deal with it? Lin Yang's eyes lit up. Duwenge's aim was the buried treasure. If Lin Yang could excavate it first and then sell the house to Duwenge, he could turn the whole thing around. He would not only remove the immediate threat, but make Duwenge pay for threatening the family. Duwenge didn't know the exact treasure location. It would take him time to find it. By the time he realized he'd been tricked, the forced signboard change would already have fermented. Under public pressure, the person backing Duwenge would have been forced to step down. Duwenge, left without a patron, would be like a rat in the street. Everyone would pounce. Lin Yang wouldn't even have to lift a finger. People would swarm him. At that point, he wouldn't have the energy to bother the Yang family. This plan would not only solve their problem, but also extract compensation. Best of all, Lin Yang had channels to handle whatever was dug up. When he'd sold silver coins at Qingshuitang Antique Market before, he'd accidentally discovered that the jar holding those coins was the real treasure. That encounter had led him to Lin Bian, the owner of Xing City's largest antique shop. With that scale, Lin Bian could certainly deal with anything excavated. Deciding on this course of action, Lin Yang moved on to the remaining pieces of intelligence. Weekly Intelligence 3, a 64-kilogram tai sui, was unearthed at Phoenix Ridge in Phoenix Village. An auction house confirmed it was genuine and valued it at 100,000 yuan per gram, saying this type of tai sui was extremely rare. Ordinary retail investors could not acquire it. It would have to be sold to large merchants in one lot. Organizing such a high-end auction required a deposit of 5 million yuan. If you're not greedy, you won't be fooled. Lin Yang had been thrilled for a moment when he read the first half. 3.4 billion. He couldn't even imagine that kind of money. Forget selling it, even consuming it himself would be a dream. If some legendary elixir didn't grant immortality, it would at least strengthen the body and immunity, right? Then he read the rest and realized it was a scam. Who would fall for a thing like that? Even if the villagers were doing well now, the wealthiest family in the village probably couldn't come up with 5 million yuan. That swindler would end up doing useless work. Lin Yang was sure he wouldn't be fooled even without the intelligence, so why was this item in the weekly report? Was there some hidden angle? Weekly Intelligence 4. After the stock market closed at 3 p.m. on Monday, news spread that the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology required intelligent driving to be called assisted driving, and that assisted driving could not be exaggerated or falsely advertised. The intelligent driving sector hit a full-line limit down the next day. Please avoid risks immediately. After pouring funds into Foodie Battery, Lin Yang still had nearly 100 million idle. He'd been waiting for the right stock. This intelligence wasn't a tip to buy, but a warning to avoid the intelligent driving sector. He messaged Hu Qian at once, telling her not to touch intelligent driving stocks until he gave the go-ahead. Hu Qian had been optimistic about that sector and was planning to recommend it to Lin Yang. She didn't know his reasons for caution, but since it came from him, she obeyed. Weekly Intelligence 5. Heavy rain will hit Fenghuang County on Friday, and the Tuojiang River's water level will rise sharply. Early evacuation can avoid losses. Lin Yang felt like a water god from a past life. In Xing City, when he worked there, heavy rain and urban flooding had been weekly occurrences. He had been back home only a few days, and now things looked even worse: direct flooding. The Yang family old house sat in a low-lying area on the outskirts of the county town. This could be turned into an opportunity. He could use the forecast to move his grandmother and little uncle to higher ground before the storm. While they were away, he could dig up the treasures under the house. Selling the house to Du Weng could be presented as a safety-driven sale because of the flooding risk. Du Wengi would likely offer a higher price in that panic. The proceeds could buy a new, safer home and leave some funds for the family's future. The intelligence system had been upgraded from daily to weekly for 4 weeks, and Lin Yang had received a total of 21 pieces of intelligence. He glanced at his system experience. Weekly intelligence, 2100 3,000. 900 more experience would upgrade it to the monthly intelligence tier. Each piece of weekly intelligence gave 100 experience, so 9 more pieces would do it. If luck was with him, the system could upgrade next week, At worst, it would take 3 more weeks. Xiaoyang, breakfast is ready. His mother's call snapped Lin Yang back to the present. He got dressed, washed up, and went downstairs. Over breakfast, he reminded his father of the promise to get a driver's license. He'd said he'd buy him a car once he had it. Don't waste money. Save it for when you get married, Lin Weiguo replied, but he was secretly pleased. He wanted a car but didn't want to burden his son. Dad, I have the money. Use it however you like, Lin Yang insisted. Yes, the times are different now. Our son has done well. He won't be short on money for a car, his mother said proudly. Lin Weiguo thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, I'll go check today and sign up at a driving school. After I get my license, I'll buy one for commuting. After breakfast, Lin Yang drove his mother to his grandmother's house. He had already worked out a plan to handle little uncle's troublesome marriage and was confident this time he could solve things smoothly.